Hey everybody, welcome to episode 72 of the All JuveCast. And didn't take long to get my man Eric back on, actually doing me a solid and filling in as some plans fell through. I appreciate it, man. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime, Berto. I'm always available for you.
Appreciate that, man. We got the match against Udinese we're going to be recapping, and this one was pretty sweet to see because we got some questions answered. We experimented a bit, and it actually worked out very well. Juve got a 3-1 win, and let's get right to it. First off, we see the lineups. Eric, what's going through your mind when you see the lineups? Because I know there was some projections that showed we were going to do some of the same things, but I've found that it's always been wrong the day ahead. Like it's been completely wrong this whole season so far. So I didn't really pay much attention to it. But when you saw the lineup, what'd you think immediately?
I was surprised. I know after um, the match previously, we were all kind of up in arms about making some changes and what has to happen, and can the three of Dybala, Higuain, and Cristiano, can they play together? And they had that little bit of a cameo where they showed that they could. So the issue I think that came up for me up until that change was like, what's the game tactics? How does that become affected? I mean, these are and your depth. How does depth become affected by having those three start? And I think that's something that gets glossed over when some of us armchair coaches decide to make our lineups known and argue points and stuff like that. So there was some really solid viewpoints. I think if you start the team that you started, which I think is like 90% being our best squad, what happens to depth and stuff like that. So I think if you continue with that formation, which I think we should, who do you bring off the bench? What are your in-game tactics? Is there any formation changes, stuff like that? So personally speaking, I think I speak for a lot of us that like seeing those three up front was absolutely fun. It's about time. You saw the creativity. The only question leaves me with, what's our best midfield variation?
Yeah.
But I thought it was a few games too late, but I think it had to do with just the quality of the team. No offense to Udinese, but this is one of those games that you can afford to kind of make um,
Yeah.
these formation changes to.
Yeah, so you're a little surprised. I actually, well, yeah, I mean, some of it surprised me, but in a good way. It was really good to see. So we had Buffon in net, Danilo on the right, Bonucci and Demiral in the middle. And again, what I liked was we're going to reward Demiral after a solid performance and give him another one. And then Deschilio on the left. And I thought Deschilio was good leading up to this one too. And then in the middle, we had Matuidi on the left, Bentancur as the holding mid, Rabiot on the right, and then, that attacking trident of Dybala, Ronaldo, and Higuain. And I was pumped. It was about time to answer some questions while also rewarding the guys that deserved it. Bentancur, before taking the knock, was fantastic, putting in solid performances. And then Demiral, we talked about rewarding him, and then the experiment up front and just seeing what these guys can do from the get go, and just see what comes of it. So it was really good, and I mean, we got to factor in it's Udinese. They're like 17th or something in the table, but still, we've struggled with lesser clubs this season and grinded out wins. So really, it's just we got to ask those questions and see what we come with. But in this one, it was pretty good, and it didn't take long before all that talent up front started giving them fits. Even Bonucci with some nice balls up front to Dybala. Um, like that goal didn't even take long, and it was a long ball from Bonucci, and Ronaldo ended up cleaning it up off Dybala settling it, and there you go. One thing we needed, Ronaldo start banging in some goals. But yeah, watching the three of them link up and see what we got. I liked it because we kept on the throttle. We had really good counters. Dybala was linking up everything so nicely. He had a stellar game. And it's funny because I think watching these three kind of reiterates my point I made on our actual pop-up session, where I think Sarri's going to find himself having to figure out that secondary formation and setup. Because honestly, like, I think we've seen such a small sample of it, but I think Ronaldo, Dybala, and Higuain have produced like 8 or 9 goals or something in like a 90 something minutes of total actual. It's something around that.
I thought it was like 8 goals in 158 minutes or something
It finished with
ridiculously. Yeah, like that.
It's like it's just. I think like if I was in a crunch situation, like go-to game, I think I play them. And now what I would start doing is, if we can lock down matches like this, I think that's when you start bringing in, your Costa, your Bernardeschi, and you start figuring out what's my switch, and then what do I do in this, and start working on that. Because I think Dybala, Higuain, and Ronaldo, like, that's your go-to. It has to be, from what we've seen, even though it's been a small sample size. Like, it clicks, it works. The runs are all there, and what I find funny too is that I didn't really hear anybody talking about it or tweeting about it during the match, but everybody wants to talk about balance. But the funny thing is, with the three of them out there, has been the best balance we've had. And I think because it allows the other guys to do their job and not have to go over and above their capabilities. So you see a guy like Matuidi, especially in this one, he doesn't have to get high up the pitch and get as involved. He can stay back and just be that guy that breaks up the counters and shuts them down. And because you've got enough creativity and attack with those three, that those other guys can just do their job, and Rabiot, I thought, looked actually better on the right side of the mid than he has on the left side. People are still ragging on Rabiot, but I mean, I don't know. I think he's okay for me for what he needs to do on this team. He holds the ball up very well, and he draws a lot of fouls, and he actually, he gives other guys space. I think he's doing okay. But yeah, it's funny, like these three, when you put them out there, actually balances out our lineup quite nicely, like very, very nicely. But yeah, those are a few of the things I noticed, was that it actually gave us a lot of balance. As the game keeps going on, Demirol, like, how do we not talk about this guy? Like, instantly in this match, he just demoralized like those Udinese forwards, Okaka especially. Like, he just tossed them around. Like, it was the first few minutes, and there was a couple balls, and he was just right on him and just tossing them. And I was like he's just a different style than the other guys that we have, and it's got to be utilized a little more, because he's just that guy that's like, when you hear other players talk about Chiellini, it's just they hate playing against him. Because he had that. He was the same way, and he still kind of is when he wants to be. But he's starting to take another kind of role. He's still physical, but not to that extent anymore. But Demirol, like, man, it's fun to watch, because we don't have another guy like that. And it's not taking anything away from other defenders. Like, but if you've played sports, you just know when you're going to be in for a brutal day, and that's what he sets up. And I love it, man. I love watching the guy. And it's good to start hearing Juve's board start talking, like shutting down those rumors. But that guy's just a unit, man. Demirol's been unreal. But yeah, what do you think about like the balance in there? Obviously, Demerol, we both agree the guy's just a stud. But do you find that with those three like balances us out? Did you find that with those three up front?
I did, and I'm a lot more curious to see how those three continue to create with the overlapping of Juan and the overlapping of Sandro. So to me, they seemed a little bit restricted, which would prove that they're actually better than what they looked to be because they did everything really, really central because they weren't getting a lot of pushing forward with their fullbacks. So a lot of their link up play was pretty central, pretty narrow. And then if you add two fullbacks like Sandro and Quadrado to that formation, it just continues to amplify their creativity, their attack. So
Yeah.
to me, it was nice. But I do want to see what happens when the ball gets pushed forward from the flank a little bit more and how defenses get stretched out. That's still something that I'm looking to see is that Dybala, Higuain, and Cristiano were still getting collapsed on because they weren't getting flanked by the fullbacks enough and the
Yeah.
defense wasn't getting stretched. So when that happens, I think that's when we're going to start seeing 4, 5, 6 goals a game. If
Yeah.
if this formation can be consistent if we continue to use it.
Yeah, and it's funny you mentioned that. I thought DeCilio again this match had a great match, and as the game went on, he started to fill that role and he started to push up and get much more involved. But and Danilo on the other side, I mean, I can't really knock on the guy because he does his job. He gives you just enough,
Yeah.
right? And same thing on that side. Both flanks, you could say, they get deep and involved minimally throughout a match. And yeah, if we eventually get to a point like, yeah, I agree, I'd like to see more penetrating runs from the flanks and just start sucking some defenders that way to create space at the top of the area for some balls in to get some opportunities. But yeah, that's something we'll have to see if. I mean, it's funny too because I started thinking about this. Like DeCilio's performances lately have been fantastic on the left side, and it's funny because Sandro is an absolute pain in the ass to beat if you're on the opposing team. So you know defensively, like that's your guy, right? And it's just like, man, it's tough in a crunch game. Like if DeCilio keeps kind of pressing the pace and pushing up there as he did, like he's given the guys something to think about. But nobody's given DeCilio the credit for these past few matches. It's kind of funny, but man, I don't know. I thought he's been great. We keep going in this match, and then again, just Ronaldo Higuain the ball. Another thing we talked about on that last episode, the pop-up episode, was just the lack of penetrating runs that Juve make as a team and whatnot. But that goes away when these guys are in there. Higuain, Dybala, Ronaldo all make great runs, and on this second goal, timed like perfectly. Higuain dropping deep to collect the ball and then actually just taking his time and just waiting, and then just perfect money pass on Ronaldo on a great time run, and then Ronaldo finishes it. Just deadly goal. But this first half was awesome. Like always positive, always on the front foot, and it's funny because we didn't look tired throughout that half, even though we were foot on the throttle, like controlling the tempo, playing at a quicker pace throughout that first half. And another thing we talked about, it's a grind when they play that slow possession game, but when you try and push the pace and let the ball do the work, it just seems easier. And despite the fact we had a Champions League game leading up to this, we didn't look like that at all through the first half. I enjoyed the first half. I thought it was awesome. And I thought everybody did their. I thought Bentancur had a great first half, like in that holding role. Something I was looking out for. Demerol, fantastic, like just awesome. Your thoughts at the end of this first half?
Pretty much the same. Going back to DeCilio, I thought From his first touch, I think it was like 10 seconds within the game. And when he touched the ball and he actually passed the ball, I can't remember exactly who it was too, but I mean, just the way that he had passed it. I mean, the moment he touched the ball, he was playing with confidence. And I'm like, well, just he's continuing his last game. So DeCilio quietly having a terrific game.
Yeah.
And then Rodrigo, I made it known that I thought that given his versatility in the midfield, he proved to me that he's probably our most well-rounded overall best midfielder with just how he handled that role and what he was able to do. Then Demirol just being an absolute unit, like you said. Now, I personally thought that De Ligt should have started alongside with him because I think those two need to build chemistry a little bit more. And I thought that Leo needed a little bit of a rest. He's the only one that's played every minute of every match this game, so I kind of wanted him to get some rest. But just the first half was, I'll allude to this, is that the very first goal to me was a little bit more of a fortuitous bounce where it ended up in Cristiano's feet. So I thought up until that point, I kept finding myself saying, wow, there's a whole lot of creativity, but no end result. So we look fantastic, but we're not getting results because outside of that bounce off of Dybala's chest, we really didn't break their center halves down enough. And then when that second goal came, it was like, this is exactly why you're in this formation. So I thought that the first goal, we were rather fortuitous. We played well. We stayed in their half. We possessed the ball. We did everything right, which is positive signs. And I'll go back to saying, commenting on that penetrating run from Ronaldo, is that one thing that bothers me is that I've seen players make that same run in previous matches. They just never get the look. Yeah. I've seen Aaron Ramsey take off and no one's seen him. I've seen Bernadeschi do it. I've seen Douglas Costa do it. There was one game where I saw like Bernadeschi make 3 or 4 and Juan Cuadrado just did not give him the long ball. Same thing with Aaron Ramsey. So it was nice to see that the penetrating run is finally getting noticed, because we may be playing so much more better if that long ball happens. So, and that's an in-game tactic. If you can't pass between the lines, you're going to have to figure out how to send the ball over the top. So they need to start looking for that.
And I think that's exactly what I mean when I'm saying it'll, like, having those 3 out there eliminates that issue where looks aren't getting rewarded, because now your creativity is coming from the guys that know what to look for. It's not coming from your Matuidi. It's not coming from your Cuadrado. It's not coming from your Khedira. It's coming from the guys that know what run's coming. And I think that's why that 3 is our best going forward. I think Bentancur, I get it that it's Udinese and some people keep throwing that out there, but this allows us the freedom to try Pjanic in a side midfielder role, and or another option is Trequartista, just to see, like, just find out, just see what happens, because another guy that's also good at picking out those runs and knows how to create and whatnot. And yeah, the guy can shoot. He's got a great long range effort. It's worth a shot. Like, that's the next step to move. Bentancur showed you he can do it. So I think we just got to keep building off that. But yeah, you're right. And I've spotted that a lot, and I've said it a lot on the podcast. There's a lot of times, and you know what? Like, the guy takes so much heat, but excuse me, Bernardeschi makes a lot of good runs. Unfortunately for him, the ball's always with the wrong guys.
Right.
It just, because I constantly see that he does make good runs. It's just, unfortunately, they're not going to come when it's in certain guys' feet, and we know that. But that's the biggest thing I noticed. Having those 3 guys out there, it eliminates that issue. because they play through whichever one of those three drops to show. So, but yeah. And then we get to the second half here. Second half, honestly, we just ended up really managing the match.
Yeah.
When we did push, we made some good things happen. But the drive kind of faded with the 3-goal lead and whatnot, which is understandable. We gave up a soft goal, but again, we had switched off. And I'm not upset. I'm not complaining about anything because this was a good match for a lot of reasons, the ones we discussed. But honestly, it does kind of bug me because, if I find it counterproductive to the mindset Sarri is trying to get the team to get to. So while I understand it, you're cruising in this one. Don't go too hard. You don't want injuries. You don't want that. But at the same time, I feel we should still be the ones dictating what happens and not just accepting waves. You can manage a game, but you don't have to do it by accepting wave after wave after wave. I would have liked to see us continue to try to just drive a little more and still dictate things. What do you think? What do you think about that personally?
I mean, I would agree, but I also think that Cristiano had quite a few opportunities in the second half to really put this game to rest, and they were just unfortunate results where, a couple off the post, stuff like that. So if he makes those goals, are we having this conversation when the game ends 5-1, 6-1? Probably not, but
I think
that's just the way that the...
Yeah, and I get that. Yeah, he hit the post. Only another one with a good save. I think he just went wide on another, but still, I'm just talking about like the overall play and whatnot, and just trying to get them away from the mindset and mentality to always just like to sit on leads, whether the lead be a 2-goal, a 3-goal, a 4-goal, like just hang on to the ball. Control the game at all times. Like, don't stop all the good things that you're doing, right? That's kind of what I'm getting at. And just kind of continue to just let the team gel and build chemistry and just go after it. If we can rack up, like, Ronaldo's Ronaldo, right? When you look at him in the opportunities, like, that he's got that mentality where if I can score 10, I'm going to score 10. But Juve has historically been that team where we're going to do enough. It's just the W that counts. Nobody cares if it's 10 goals, 12 goals, 2 goals. It's that W that looks the same on the table, right? So it's just, and sorry again, always speaking to wanting to be that foot on the throttle team and not stop and just keep killing, right? I just think I see it a little bit counterproductive. Am I complaining? By no means, because this is one of the better matches we've seen in a long time. Granted, Udinese, but we saw a lot of good things and we got some answers that we actually needed quite a bit more than I think people are giving credit for out of this match. Because, again, we've touched on it. We've done worse with lesser sides and struggled, like really struggled. So yeah, I don't know. There was still a lot of good one. It was all in all solid match. CR needed those 2 goals. Sorry, honestly, again, he's got to figure out he's got his 1A, I think. Now he's got to go with his 1B. And he's got to figure out what they got to go there and what they got to do. I want to hear your thoughts on your 1B. Because if we had to go into a match right now, say it was just, I know it's coming down a while. We'll get to our opponent in the Champions League knockouts that we draw. But say we're going into a knockout match next week or whatnot. I want to get your 1A and your 1B and what you would do.
It's a little difficult, man. It's not as easy as it sounds. But 1A would be the lineup that he used But you take out the Shelio, you take out Danilo, you take out Demerol. Okay, so you have Sandro, you'll have Delict, and then you'll have Quadrado. The midfield is where I'm going to be a little bit fancy, I guess, if you will. I'm going to keep Bentancur at the holding midfield position. I'm going to put Pjanic at the left mid, and then I'm going to put Rabiot at the right mid, and then I'm going to keep my front three with HDR. That would be my 1A right now because I think that's our best, most creative offensive squad that also has the ability to recover defensively if needed. One B would probably I would keep one of those three strikers on the bench. I would insert Ramsey at the 10, and then I might put Bernadeschi in for Rabiot. That would be my 1B.
Yeah. Man, I think your 1A, I'm fully on board. I already know a lot of the things that will come in, and it's probably going to talk about the balance of that midfield. But I think it is balanced. I think Bentancur is a holding. We know that kid can play defense and win balls. Rabiot's good defensively. That allows Pjanic a little more freedom, which is the guy you want to have a little more freedom. The fact that he's playing on Sandro's side as well, Sandro's going to be that backup as well. So I think it is balanced. Get Pjanic a little further up the pitch, which we really, really need. For my 1B, I'd probably say, and this is what I hope Sarri starts to work on because we need that alternative when we make those subs, but I think it's honestly between Higuain and Dybala swapping at that front role and Costa coming in as a winger. And Costa and Berna being those wingers. So our alternative, our 1B, would be a 4-3-3. And
Oh, I didn't know that was part of the rules. I didn't know we could do that.
yeah,
I
for
thought.
sure.
Oh, okay. I
For
thought it
sure.
was strictly just the four
If
three
we're
one two.
sticking
But
if we're
I
sticking
agree
in the
with.
if we're sticking in the 4-3-1-2, then I think obviously you take off one of those strikers and Costa. I mean, we've only seen it for 25 minutes. Him as trequartista, and he didn't really play the role like
Right.
any of the other guys did. He was like still going flank to flank. It was pretty wild. So I don't really know there. I know he's played it a bit in the past, but I mean, Sarri could experiment there. But I think if you're gonna go in the same formation, I would go with Ramsey. But Ramsey's had a tough go in that spot lately as well. But again, we kind of touched on it on the pop-up. I think it's just we were playing such a slow, dull game and not creating space for one another in there. And that's another thing with that Trident is, man, they just know where to go and where to create the space for the other guys as well. And there's just like that chemistry's been there since the start, even when they had only had like 20 something minutes together or whatnot, but it was just there. It just works. And it's one of those things that, I think just even Sarri, like he says it, he talks about wanting that balance and whatnot, but when you see it on the pitch, you can't deny it. It's there. It's right there in front of you, and it works, and it produces goals. You can't go away from it, right? I think now his challenge goes to how does he work the others in? Does he stick 4-3-1-2? When he makes his changes, does he go 4-3-3? Right? So, oh man, yeah, I think we got to go 4-3-3. We have to find a position for Bernardeschi to succeed in. That's going to be the thing too, because if we go to a 4-3-3 as a 1B, if he's not cutting it as a winger, but I think he would if just given the time to like just stay there, like that's it. This is what I want you to do, Coming in after the 65th minute, Bernardeschi and Costa got the legs where they should be able to do damage. Costa will, but I think Berna might be better suited to play that style. Just be that guy that comes in when teams are, we're an hour and 5 minutes in, and then take it to them. Just get the ball in the wing, just drive in and cut in, or go down deep and cross them in. Just cause havoc. Might be better. If not, I think he's more than capable to just be a Metsala and also offer rotation in there. But I think that's what Sarr's got to work on, and he's got quite a bit of time. We've got our opponent for the Champions League, and we got Lyon. And honestly, when you look at the other draws, this is this is a very, very nice draw for Juve. I think Lyon. I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk by any means, because it never is, and this competition is ridiculous. But honestly, you look at the other teams like Atletico Madrid and Liverpool, Borussia and PSG. Tottenham got Leipzig, which is probably favorable for them right now, because since Mo went in there, they're kind of rolling. Atalanta and Valencia is actually going to be a fun watch. That's just going to be a nice tie. Chelsea and Bayern. Napoli gets Barcelona. We get Lyon, and Real Madrid get Man City. This is a nice draw. A very, very nice draw. If you're a Juventino, I saw that. And of course these draws take place and it's super early. I'm not even up yet. And then I get up and I'm just expecting, something with the storyline attached to it, right? It's going to be Sarri flying back to London, or it's going to be Ronaldo going back to the Bernabeu, something. And then I get Lyon and I'm like, I did not expect it. Lyon, granted that they've lost Adelaide and Memphis Depay, they're young and they got a lot of talent. They still got a lot of skilled players. The one thing that gets me thinking about this one is the fact that they are a young team that's very fast, has a lot of dynamic players. They are better than what their current standing in that league says too, because they've lost quite a few matches by 1 goal. I'm kind of weary just because of what we saw happen to Juve last year against Ajax, because the similarities of the team, maybe not in the football style, but there are a lot of similarities between the teams. What are your thoughts originally when we drew Lyon, and what are you kind of thinking about leading up to that one?
The same as you, actually. And I feel really bad for Memphis. He was having a hell of a year.
Yeah.
And it's as a competitor, it's not something that you want to see happen to somebody like Memphis who's having a great year. So, poor timing for Lyon and fortuitous timing for Juve, So the only problem that I have with teams like this is okay, great, we got a great draw for the round of 16, but that only means that the round of 8 is only going to be that much more harder. So this is going to be an opportunity for us to really fine tune, because there's only going to be a big squad left available after this round. So I'm happy with it, because I think this is a great time to kind of get into rhythm. You want to be playing your best ball in February and March, and if we can get into that and then go to the quarters after being able to make it past Lyon, if we do, that's only going to make us more confident, more dynamic, and playing better. It doesn't. So at that point, I'm going to be a lot more confident, no matter who we draw at that point. So I'm glad we got him. I was going to make mention that Lyon kind of reminded me of how Ajax was last year, where they just play very fluid. They're very, very fast, a lot of ball movement, but losing Memphis is huge. So that's a big advantage for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean that was first initial reaction. Yeah, that's great to draw Leon. But when you break it down, it is a little dangerous for us. You just don't want us to take it lightly, um, or even have a safe approach. And like, obviously, we have Sari's got a few months to keep ingraining his system into this club and hopefully bring out consistency in our play, because we're gonna lock horns with them. February 26th is the first leg, and he's got a lot of time to sort it out. And yeah, hopefully we build off this last one and he starts recognizing what he's got to do. And the nice thing is he has done the experiments that people wanted to see. Whether or not he goes back to it and keeps doing things, like, it'll be interesting. But yeah, with a couple months going there, it's always in the back of your head after we see that what happened with Ajax last year, and it's like we looked really, really old against them. And that's, you start thinking about it again, right? But, come February, and a lot of things can change. Maybe Bentancur establishes himself and solidifies something. Maybe Pjanic finds himself getting more freedom. If we roll with those three up front, that's going to give Leon fits facing that trident up top. So all in all, we're heavy favorites going into that, but we just need to approach it. Yeah, I just don't want them to approach it safely. We need to still foot on the throttle, go at them, put the young kids under that pressure and that stress, and make them react while just being sharp and focused, because now we get back to a match like this today. This last one against Udinese. When they shut it down, those second halves, and just want to cruise, even though it's 3-1 or whatnot, even 3-0, whatever, that's when we make the mistakes. That's when we make the mistakes in possession. We've switched off. We just want to manage. That's how we would allow issues upon ourselves from Leon. They're built to pounce on your errors with the speed and counterattacking ability that they have. So we just got to look out for that. And when we play that slow, drawn out build up from the back, like that game, it just causes us problems. And it just allows teams to press us and force those errors upon us. So we just, like I say, Sari's got a couple months to work on that, but yeah, we'll see what comes. We saw plenty of good things in the past couple matches, so especially this one against Udinese, and like we said, I don't think Sari can deny him. I think he's got to start rolling with it and seeing it. The biggest challenge he faces now is what is he going to do for his subs, because now everything he's kind of gone against is everything that's starting to work for him. So it's just it's funny. It kind of is. It really is. It's funny. Like what's this guy gonna do now with Bernardeschi, that trequartista thing, and he can't go there anymore. Dybala''s shown he can do that, but it's funny because Dybala doesn't even play that trequartista role. Like when you watch those three, it's just like a continuous cycle where they're just, Dybala will be out on the left flank, Ronaldo will be out on the left flank, Dybala will drop down, Higuain will drop down. Like it's nice to watch. They're just all in sync. However, when Bernardeschi plays there, it's almost like they just leave him there. Like it's just Bernardeschi is right here, he drops down, and it's like the other two stay up. I don't really understand that. I don't understand the lack of like movement while he's playing in that role, and it's just like, honestly, like I see him playing that, and it's just him and a swarm of the opposition, and you just
Right.
can't move and stuff. And I don't really understand why it's so different. But regardless, whether it's him or whether it's the chemistry amongst the other guys, it just, one way or another, it doesn't work. And sorry, he's got to sort that out. But Pjanic now, I've heard some ridiculous things where some people were actually saying like Bentancur's taken his role. I don't think it's necessarily Bentancur taking his role. I think it's just trying to get more out of Pjanic. And honestly, the system, because when Pjanic is in there and teams want to focus on him and shut him out, we get into trouble, right? So I think shifting him out there might be a big thing. And Ramsey with the health issues is just crazy. So the fact that of doing that kind of helps us in that sense as well. But would you rather see, if you had to experiment our next match, would you rather see Pjanic in the side role next to Bentancur or as trequartista as an experiment? Which would you rather see? Which one would you see him personally succeeding better at, do you think?
Personally, I would put him as a left mid instead of putting him in the hole where Dybala would play. And I think the reason that Bentancur works is because I think when you look at what Sarri has done in Napoli and then what he's done at Chelsea, is that I think Bentancur, to me, resembles Jorginho the most. I think a guy like Pjanic, he has the passing to be that player, but just overall, I think Bentancur is more of that holding midfield player. And to me, Pjanic is more of a Marco Verratti, if you will, where you need to get him forward in space so that he can attack through the lines. Marco's going to offer some defense, but he's also going to offer you some red cards. Rodrigo is going to defend a hell of a lot better than Pjanic will. So, and then in terms of what to do with Bernardeschi or what to do with the subs, is one thing that I made mention is that I think it's very crucial for who they make a sub for. So personally speaking, if we go back to my 1A, is that if I have Bernardeschi and Costa on the bench, they should be our super subs, because just their energy, what they can bring on the pitch when they get subbed on from the 60th or 70th minute. I mean, they're going to physically break you down after you've already been mentally broke down. But who they get subbed on for is very, very important. So for me, personally speaking, I would sub Bernardeschi on for Zalo so that he can play a little bit more closer to goal, but he has a lot more freedom to move to the flank. And you made it a point, and you touched on it, that like when he plays the number 10, I think one thing that kills him as the number 10 is that he plays it true to that one and only position. He doesn't wander. Like when Douglas Costa plays, he'll go from flank to flank. When Dybala plays, Dybala was side by side to Rabiot and Matuidi a lot. So a lot of those other guys who succeed in that position oftentimes abandon the position, and it somehow works. So I think the issue with Bernardeschi as the number 10 is that he tries to play that position true to what it is. So he only plays central, and that eliminates a lot of his skill set. So for me, if you have him as a sub, you sub him for Higuain, so that would put Ronaldo and Bernardeschi up top with Dybala still at the number 10, and then you sub on Douglas Costa for Dybala and put him at the trequartista because he's better suited for it than Bernardeschi is. But then if he wants to advance, you can have any one of those three in a 4-3-3, and you can literally swap any of them in any position, and that's going to cause a lot of problems. So that still leaves us a third substitution, which could be Matuidi, which could be because Matuidi wouldn't be in my starting 11, which could be a Rambo. You could obviously sub off somebody, put another defender on if you wanted to. But I think one a point that I made was that we've been trying to find what has been our best 11, and instead you need to figure out what's your best 14. So we need to play this as an entire team, subs included. So put the most creative lineup out there, okay, but make your subs just as important as any starter you have. They're not bench players.
Yeah.
They're starters in waiting, so that when you put them on there, it's just a seamless transition.
Yeah.
So that's what I would do. And then once again with Pjanic, I would put him at the left mid because Rabio would be in my starting 11, and he, to me, plays way more comfortable on the right.
Yeah.
And I think Pjanic can play just as good on the left as he could the right.
Yeah.
So why not put Rabio in the more comfortable position, and then they can both succeed?
Yeah. No, I agree. And yeah, I mean, it's funny. I swear to God, man, they listened to the pop-up episode because the biggest thing we talked about was making sense. And everything they did against Udinese, it made sense, you know? And again, sorry, can't deny it. The more you watch it, it makes sense. And it's starting to make more sense to get Pjanic on that left end. While I think I'd like to see both experiments, it does make sense to start him out on the left mid and start giving the freedom, get him to move forward a bit before you experiment at the trequartista role, just because he's played that holding role for so long now with us that I think it's too drastic a change to do that quickly. But to start going on the left and offering him more freedom, that's the way to do it. Bentancur makes so much sense in that holding spot because his motor is just way better than Pjanic's as well. He's quicker. He's got a better engine. We talked about it, and he's better defensively. That makes sense. Rabiot's great defensively. Put him on the right, and you don't lose any technical ability. Matuidi will still have his role. Matuidi is perfect for locking down a game when you have to. You get him out there, like, that's it. When you put him out at the start and he burns half his energy trying to keep up a player, trying to advance the ball and get up there in scenarios where, again, where we talked about, it doesn't make sense to have him as one of the creative points because that's just not what he's going to do for you, right? So everything now slowly is starting to make sense, and man, I don't know, it's kind of creepy. It's weird. But no, it's good. It's good to see. I hope Sarri follows it up, and we'll see what happens. We've got Sampdoria here midweek, and probably going to end up seeing De Ligt get back in the lineup. I probably would expect Bonucci's going to play. I don't expect the Trident again. I think probably get a rest there. But I don't know. It's tough to say because I think after this one, we're kind of done until January, I believe.
January 6th. So we play Sampdoria.
Sorry,
Wednesday.
we do have the Supercopa match.
That's on Saturday, which is the 22nd, and then we're on Christmas break until January 6th.
Yeah, so they do have the Supercopa match. So I don't expect the Trident's going to be up front there. We'll see what ends up happening, how he alternates his lineup there. But yeah, I mean, that's another thing that plays into it too, right? Is just a lot of games for Juve. So that's why sometimes like the experimentation and the follow-ups and whatnot is tougher. But I think he's got to start rewarding these guys that deserve it. Get that level of compete up. And again, all these things we've discussed, right? But we got to see it, and we got to see him follow it up. Sarri has got his signs now, and I think now, obviously my last episode, Daniel Lonigro's very, very sympathetic for Sarri, and I just was not feeling it because I was just, again, I think there's so much he could do, and Udinese, we saw it, and I hope he builds off it. But we'll see what comes up with Sampdoria. Thanks for recapping this match and all that happened. It's been awesome. Again, filled in, and for those of you that don't know, it's like 2 a.m. Where Eric's from. So thanks, appreciate it, man.
Absolutely.
And I told you there'd be payback when I was up at 4 a.m.
Yes.
No,
Yeah, I owed you, so don't worry about that.
It's much appreciated, man. Always a pleasure. Thanks again.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll catch you after the match against Sampdoria. As always, Forza Juve, fino alla fine. Ciao.
Ciao.